had an experience with the Klan. They came to my house when I was little. But my mother, this is a strong woman, my mother, she went right to the door and opened it and gave them candy. And my mother used to tell me this thing, I don't even know if you remember, but you said this to me more than once. You said, son, sometimes you have to be a lion so you can be the lamb you really are.
This shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? Something changed. They committed less crimes.
Maybe they were afraid. I mean, 4,000 black men, women, and children were killed in violent lynch mobs.
That's your explanation, but I guess...
Racial terror permeated American culture for hundreds of years.
Black America is worse than it has been.
There are protests and vigils and prayers going up for a despicable, deplorable, detestable, loathsome white man. A 21-year-old young black man was found lynched in his university campus.
So Dave Chappelle is once again speaking some hard truths. And he's pointing out the hypocrisy of the national freakout over Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. We can all agree that no one should be celebrating Charlie's death. But having his body flown on Air Force Two, flags being lowered at half-mast, having him lie in state, putting a statue of him in the Capitol, giving him a Presidential Medal of Freedom, this is not a normal reaction for someone who has never held office. Now, comparing that to the absolute silence over the young men who were just found lynched in Mississippi, college student Trey Reed and a homeless man, Corey Zucatis, both were found hanging from trees, both deaths raising serious questions, and yet the media coverage, practically nothing. Now, the police were quick to claim there was no foul play involved, but knowing the history of lynching in the state of Mississippi and the current political climate, this definitely deserves further investigation. But you already know that America has a double standard when it comes to whose lives actually matter. The outrage for Charlie Kirk has been insane. Politicians, celebrities, pundits, social media, you name it. Everyone's weighing in. And get this, people are even getting fired from their jobs just because they made some comments on social media saying they don't care about Kirk's death.
Yesterday at 5 p.m., I was fired from my job for posting a video saying I don't care about Charlie Kirk's death.
Meanwhile, the deaths of those two men in Mississippi barely make a blip. So now Chappelle is asking what a lot of us are thinking. Why are people being punished for not mourning the death of someone who was openly racist? Meanwhile, actual lynchings of two black men are being treated like background noise. Meanwhile, two actual lynchings of men are being treated like background noise. So yeah, if you're tired of people gaslighting you that Charlie Kirk's death is the only thing you should care about, stick around. Because in this video, we're talking about how Mississippi is low-key trying to bring back lynchings and why you need to pay attention to what they're not telling you in mainstream media.
What the 60s must have been like for anybody. What was it, 8 or 9 assassinations? What does that do to a generation? Having lived through that and having known those people. This is me. I imagine I'd still be angry.
Many people think that what happened to Charlie is tragic, just like any other loss of human life. But we can't just ignore how America is sanitizing a white supremacist's legacy in real time. Not only did Trump order the U.S. flags to fly at half-staff in honor of Charlie Kirk, but just one day after his death, U.S. Congresswoman Nancy Mace announced that she will introduce a resolution to authorize Charlie to lie in honor in the Capitol Rotunda. Mace wrote on X, "We will be introducing a resolution authorizing Charlie Kirk to lie in honor in the Capitol Rotunda should the Kirk family wish for him to be honored there. Charlie Kirk devoted his life to defending the freedoms, defending our nation. He inspired millions, led countless souls to Christ, and never wavered in defense of the First Amendment. Such a legacy makes him uniquely worthy of this distinction." Now, can we just pause and talk about how ridiculous it is that the Republicans want Charlie Kirk to lie in honor at the Capitol? When it comes to private citizens lying in honor at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, only a handful of people have received this honor, usually for extraordinary contributions to the nation or heroic service, and among them is Rosa Parks. And now they're seriously suggesting that Charlie Kirk should get the same honor as Rosa Parks? This man spent his career spreading white supremacist ideas, calling civil rights a mistake, and actively undermining marginalized communities.
Condemn the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as a huge mistake.
Correct.
So this is just gaslighting on a national scale. They're literally telling the public that someone who thrived off hate deserves to be remembered alongside heroes who literally risked everything for justice. And here's where they get even crazier. Charlie Kirk's casket was flown back from Utah to Arizona on Air Force Two with J.D. Vance personally escorting it. And if that wasn't weird enough, they also made the military honor guard carry Kirk's casket. Many people were outraged by this, including veterans who called it a disgrace and an insult to everyone who has served the country. One user on X wrote, "Black soldiers must look at that task with a bit of nausea." Charlie Kirk said he would prefer not to take a flight if the pilot was black. That's just a tiny sample of Kirk's hate. And another person said, "It's a shame that the Air Force Honor Guard is carrying Charlie Kirk's casket. The Pentagon owes the American people an explanation. Charlie Kirk never served. He mocked veterans, spread hate, sowed division, and died doing it. This isn't honoring service. It's politicizing sacrifice. This is an insult to every fallen soldier." And again, we're talking about a man who said that black people were better off before the Civil Rights Act was passed, and that black women don't have the brain processing power to be taken seriously without affirmative action.
This shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? Something changed. They committed less crimes.
Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, "I'm only here because of affirmative action." Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Play cut 52.
Meanwhile, black folks who are just trying to mind their black business are suddenly being dragged into all this. They're being blamed, scapegoated, and even punished for supposedly celebrating Kirk's assassination. Like that student in Texas who got expelled just because someone recorded her making a joke about Kirk in a private conversation. People are out here losing jobs, getting harassed online, all because they didn't cry for a man who openly said civil rights was a mistake. Let that sink in. So now, not only do we have to watch this massive state-sponsored mourning parade for someone who stood against everyone who wasn't a straight white conservative male, but we're also being gaslighted into believing we should care. That somehow, if we don't fall in line and mourn the same way, we're the problem. And while all this circus is going down for Charlie Kirk, let's talk about what's not being covered. Because while America was busy mourning a white supremacist, two young men were found hanging from trees in Mississippi. One of them, DeMar Travion Trey Reed, was a 21-year-old black college student at Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi. The other, Corey Zukatis, was a 36-year-old white homeless man in Vicksburg. Both deaths happened the same week as Kirk's assassination, and both have way too many suspicious details to just write off.
Authorities say the body of 21-year-old DeMar Travion Trey Reed was found hanged from a tree by a faculty member near the pickleball courts. Word spread quickly throughout the Cleveland campus, leaving students and others concerned and worried.
Well, because I am a black student, hearing that happened to another black student, it really made me feel, it's make me feel unsafe.
I do have to walk to class, and I like to go walk on the track, and it would be happy to know like what happened.
Local and state investigators immediately started looking into the incident. DSU Police Chief Michael Peeler says investigators found no evidence.
Now, authorities were too quick to say that there was no foul play involved in Trey Reed's case. But Trey's family doesn't believe it, and they're demanding an independent autopsy because the official story isn't adding up.
And members of Reed's family are insisting on a thorough investigation.
Please, 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 please do your research on this. Do not let them sweep nothing else under the rug. Enough is enough.
And then Corey Zukatis' case is also suspicious. Same method, same timing, and yet no public information about the exact circumstances of his death. According to Yahoo, the police just confirmed they discovered the body of a man hanging from a tree in a densely forested area off the Ameristar Casino. The coroner identified the body as Corey Zukatis, and his death was confirmed by Warren County Coroner Doug L. Husky. Husky just said that Zukatis was discovered on Monday, September 15th, about 10:30 a.m. But the police released no further information. But the timing is extremely suspect because Corey was found just hours before Trey Reed's body was discovered. You have two hangings in Mississippi in 2025 within hours of each other, right when Charlie Kirk supporters are trying to incite a civil war. Is it really just a coincidence? Well, that's up to you to decide. But what we do know for a fact is that the mainstream media is deliberately ignoring the story about these two men from Mississippi while flooding us with coverage about Charlie Kirk. Now, Corey Zukatis was white, but he was also homeless. And that's important to keep in mind because do you know who recently suggested that homeless people should be executed with lethal injection? Fox News host Brian Kilmeade. That's right. This man went on national TV and said that we should just start eliminating the homeless. And get this, he said that just 2 days before Corey Zukatis' body was found.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up.
So when Brian Kilmeade says that we should get rid of the homeless with a lethal injection, he's talking about Americans, veterans, trauma survivors, the most vulnerable people in this country. And he's directly calling for state-sanctioned execution instead of housing, healthcare, or compassion. And yet they want you to be fired from your job for making a joke about Charlie Kirk, and that's exactly the kind of hypocrisy Dave Chappelle is calling out. It's the same type of hypocrisy Dave talked about after the Capitol riots when he compared it to the backlash Colin Kaepernick got. Yeah, we're living in very dark times, y'all. On one hand, you have America turning Charlie Kirk into a saint, and on the other hand, you've got two men found hanging from trees in Mississippi, one of them a young black student, and the whole thing barely makes it on the national radar. And when people say the system is broken, nope, the system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. But there's literally psychological warfare being waged upon us. So don't let the media, the politicians, or the so-called influencers gaslight you into believing you're crazy for noticing this. And let me know in the comments how you feel about everything that's been going on lately. Why is Charlie Kirk's death treated like a national emergency while Trey Reed and Corey Zukatis are erased before the story even gets told? Why is grief mandatory for someone who called civil rights a mistake, but it's non-existent when black and poor folks are literally being lynched in 2025? What does that say about where this country's headed? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation needs to happen. And they're sure not gonna have it on News Nation, CNN, or Fox News.